efficient. Everyone answered all my questions. Everyone came on time. Super helpful. Yeah, it's been great.
Heritage reclaimed building in Gastown. Mix of commercial on the first and second floor with some converted space into residential units on floors 3, 4, and 5. I don't know if there's a 6th floor. Yeah, and there's some cool rooftop patio space. Really neat building. So we were called in to handle some drying, emergency drying there. Unfortunately, a mechanical contractor had attended and they did a building shutdown to do some plumbing repairs. There was some renovation work going on. They'd shut down the building's water system. When they repressurized the line, it caused a cap to pop off and release water in 3 residential units and a commercial unit. So we attended, there was some extraction required. Obviously, initial day, the most important thing is to figure out what areas are affected. So we call that moisture mapping. So in addition to doing the water extraction and setting up the equipment to know where you need to dry, where that equipment needs to go, you need to map. So I know you guys were on site there and you actually saw our technician with a moisture meter and a thermal imaging camera. They went ahead and they began the moisture mapping process. So really what you do, that process starts by finding a dry area, or what we call a dry standard. So you would go into whatever area is affected, and then you would want to be within that unit or room or area, find an area that's unaffected, get a dry standard, usually with a moisture reader in a percentage format. So you're going to say, your drywall has an average moisture content of 10 to 12%. So that's your baseline. So then when you go and you start putting the meter in the affected areas, you're seeing percentages much higher than that, and oftentimes on initial you're 99.999, you know that area is wet. So what you do is you basically take your meter and you move it across that area and you start to paint a map of what area is affected. As we do that map, we actually mark it out with blue painter's tape so we can actually see what areas are affected and how we need to go about drying them. And then as we move through the drying process, we can shift the equipment to the appropriate areas to ensure that we're drying out the areas that are mapped. So the initial map gets adjusted on each attendance so that it should get smaller and smaller and smaller until you get to the point that you can remove the equipment. In an ideal world, you dry everything in 4 days in place. Sometimes you can't. Sometimes you run into situations where after 4 days, the equipment comes out and then we need to look at demo, which we did some demo on that project, but for the most part, we were able to dry a lot of the areas in the commercial space in place. So good mapping, right amount of equipment, oftentimes can minimize the amount of damage that happens or work that needs to be done on the repair side, which is obviously a lot better for the client, for the insurers, for everybody. So the more effective in-place drying we can do, it might seem more invasive with the noise and the temperature initially with the equipment, but it saves a lot of money and time on the back end. So in-place drying is great when we can do it. Moisture mapping is a big key component of that.